Welcome back to the channel. We're playing 20 questions with.
Vanessa Langton.
All right, let's get into the questions. When I say fountain pen, what pen do you think of?
Pilot for some reason.
All right. How did you get into pens?
It's funny is I got into it from the simple act of drawing. I was using a dip pen and India ink that I had used throughout, college. And I decided I felt like drawing again. And I really got frustrated with the whole having to dip my nib in the ink constantly. It was very frustrating. And it was like I had a moment. I was like, there's a thing called fountain pens. I should try one. And that just like started a whole thing.
All right. What was your first pen?
It was a Pilot Metropolitan. It was the purple one.
Okay. What's your current daily driver?
Right now, it has been, I show this all the time, but it still is, it's my Esterbrook candy. I love the color I have in it. It's a hot pink to match the resin, and I bring it out and write with it. And then I have to admit my other daily driver has actually been this Mag 650 Flex nib.
Oh, I watched that video. I watched you and Tom your flex off.
Oh gosh, that was fun. Finally kicked his butt. Finally.
It was highly enjoyable to watch. You tried. The fact that I was like 10 seconds into the video went, you should write supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and then typed it out phonetically to try and make it.
That was so nerve-wracking. It was because I was like, how do you even spell that? I mean, we've said it like throughout our childhood because of the movie, but it's like, how do you even like spell that? So I actually had to write it. It's like, okay, I'm good. Let's write this down.
I don't know at what point in my childhood I learned how to spell it, but at some point I did learn how to spell it, and it is forever a word that sticks in my brain.
It's such in a way, it's a word that's kind of fun to say. I think because it is so long, and then the movie related to it. Yeah. Mary Poppins thought it, made it cool.
Yeah. What's your favorite ink?
My favorite ink would definitely have to be Jacques Herbon's Cacao de Brazil. Okay. It's a great color.
What's your favorite brand of either pens or ink?
Well, that's really not a nice question to ask because I have a
I'm
lot.
making you pick your favorite.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I'm very fond of Kaweco sport pens, and I'd have to say that I'm going to say that those are one of my favorites because every time there's a new one that comes out, it does pique my interest, and I'm always tempted to go and buy it. So I will go with Kaweco, and then ink. Ink is kind of difficult because there's so many. Gosh, that's really tough to pick something like that. Sorry about the dogs; they're gonna freak out. I'd have to, I always go to my Sailor Studios inks. Yep. I seem to always go back to them, so maybe those are my favorite.
Yeah, I like the Sailor inks, but I do have a very soft spot for Kawecos. There's like 5 inked up currently.
Oh, really? I think I probably have about 5 inked up at the moment as well. They're just kind of around my desk.
Yeah. Vintage or modern?
I guess modern. I do appreciate vintage, but I do like modern.
Do you swatch all your inks?
I do. I like to see what they look like. I like to see the properties of them. So I do swatch them all. Do you?
Yes. Hanging cola rings and a Rolodex. Awesome. And the Atlas wear and goal swatch cards.
Oh, there you go.
which are only used for videos.
Yeah, you know what? I'm the same way with the swatch cards, but I will swatch it, inside of a journal, on paper, everywhere.
No, I use the cola ring dippers. Like they're the swatches that I actually use.
Yeah.
But the wear and goal cards are what I tend to use for videos because people always really like them on camera. And
They're
so
very cool.
they are. Do you daily drive the same pen and ink combination, or do you switch it up?
Oh, I switch it up all the time.
Are there
All the
any
time.
pens that always get the same inks, or
Yeah. And you know what? It's this pen right here. It's this Aurora always gets the Sailor Studio green ink that goes with it. I can't think of the number right now, but it's
okay?
always that because that Sailor Studio has it's green and blue and it matches the resin like perfectly. So I've never inked this with anything else. It's very weird.
There are some ink lines that I can pull the names for, but they're like I don't get the numbering system for the Sailor Ink Studios enough
I
to
don't either.
sort
I
of
can't
pull
remember
the
them.
number.
Yeah, it's just like it's green and blue.
Yeah. Do you have your writing samples for nibs in a way that you can flip through them when choosing a pen, or do you just sort of know what the nib in each pen writes like?
I pretty much just know what the nib in the pen writes like. Doing a system like the other, that's way too organized. Way too organized.
Is there a pen you wish you could see in person?
Um, Pretty much any pen by Tasha because they're so beautiful. So,
So pretty. What's your current grail?
oh wow. Um, my grail for a long time has been the Tasha Winter's Breath.
Okay.
It just has this beautiful kind of swirly eggshells and raiden on it, and I think there's even a version where the clip has some eggshell on it, and it's way too rich for my blood.
But they're so
So
pretty.
expensive.
They're so
They're gorgeous. They're
yeah, they're
gorgeous,
so pretty to look
and
at.
they are. It brings a tear to my eye every time I see them in person and just look at them, just gorgeous.
Yeah. What's a pen you would recommend to a beginner?
There's a couple. So the Pilot Metropolitan for sure, because it's really user friendly. I mean, that was actually a very friendly pen system and everything. I mean, I had no problem with it. But also, I would recommend Twisby, even though it does have piston filling system, which is probably a little too much for a beginner. Um, that and the Platinum Preppy, always recommend those.
All right. What ink would you recommend to a beginner?
Probably anything by Diamine because they're the smaller vials, and it doesn't cost a whole lot, so it doesn't scare a new user off by saying, "Well, it's a $30 bottle of ink."
Yeah.
So I think if someone says it's about $7 to $10, it's oh okay, it's a little expensive, but that's when they'll get suckered in like $30 bottle ink,
$30 bottle of ink, $55 bottle of ink.
whatever.
What advice do you have someone wanting to try out fountain pens?
Go for it. Just don't be scared. Just do it.
What filling mechanism do you think is most interesting, regardless if you like to use it or not?
Vacuum filler pens for sure, especially if it's like a demonstrator. To watch the just you press it down, it's a it's like so awesome to watch. I love that.
What nib size do you prefer to write with?
A juicy broad, and I like a nice stub.
Stubs, not so much, but broad nibs, yes.
Really?
Yeah,
What do you have against stub nibs?
I prefer an architect.
Oh, I like architect too. I do
I
like
just
architect too.
When I
So
ink up my stub, I find that I never actually use the pen.
really,
Yeah.
how interesting. Hmm.
Is there a style of nib you love but never would really use? Or love the idea of?
I love the idea of a needlepoint nib, and I have one. I just never use it because I don't. First of all, I don't write that small. And second of all, I mean, it's great, like if you're drawing for fine details, but as a regular writer, I don't see how people use that every day unless they just write like you have to have a microscope to read it. I don't get it, but I am intrigued.
Yeah. Do you always use the same paper? If so, what paper?
I don't always use the same paper. I have a variety of papers I use. My favorite is Cosmo Airlight. That's some
Okay.
good stuff. It's very velvety and just, especially if you find the right pen to, it's it's like heaven. But I also, I use a Yuge paper. I'm looking around because I have pads everywhere, everywhere. A Yuge Minimosity.
Okay.
Um, any notebooks from the Galen Daily Writer. Gosh, Clairefontaine. Clairefontaine's more of my workhorse paper. Like I use like for logbooks and stuff. But I don't really have a preference as long as it doesn't feather and bleed. I'm cool.
I like that. Honestly, that's sort of my opinion of paper.
Yeah, as long as it works with my pen, I'm totally down with it.
Do you have a least favorite ink or ink color family?
Uh, I appreciate orange, but it's not an ink that I just go out and buy. I think orange is beautiful, and I have maybe 2 bottles of orange, but I never use them.
I think we all have colors like that.
Yeah, isn't it? Or yellow, you know? But yeah, orange, I think it's a beautiful color. I know there are people out there that love orange, but it's not for me.
Well, thanks for playing 20 questions.
Sure.